What's going on YouTube? It's your host Bruce GNT, and for today's video we're going to be talking about apparently the government has been revoking the student visas of hundreds of students. I say hundreds, but all I know is more than 10, across the US. What we're going to do is that we're going to dive deep. We're going to try to figure out what's going on, why this has been happening. And Secretary Marco Rubio, he pretty much had a defense as to why they think they should do this and continue doing this. So let's jump right in.
A Senate panel sent a letter to Columbia University asking for more details about students involved in pro-Palestinian protests.
This comes as other universities are seeing student visas revoked as the Trump administration cracks down on what it calls anti-Semitism on college campuses. Let's get right to Good Day's Briella Tomasetti. She is live outside Columbia University this morning with the very latest. Briella?
Tashani and Dan, good morning. According to the New York Times, that Senate committee wants Columbia to provide more information about Students for Justice in Palestine, a group that was at the center of last spring's protests. The paper reports that lawmakers have asked the university to turn over all records pertaining to the group and its on-campus activities. The Times says the Senate committee's demand was disclosed in a court filing this week connected to a lawsuit brought on by 7 students at Columbia University in Barnard College, plus Mahmoud Khalil, the former Columbia student the Trump administration is trying to deport. Their suit asks a judge to block Columbia from handing over their disciplinary records to Republican lawmakers and accuses the government of trying to punish them for pro-Palestinian advocacy. This comes as NYU's president sent out a university-wide email warning that some members of the school's community have been affected by the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. A spokesperson for NYU wouldn't mention how many students or faculty members were affected, but according to the school paper last month, an adjunct professor fled to Canada after her student visa was revoked. The president and provost say deans will organize drop-in hours to offer additional support and added that NYU will not disclose personal information to immigration authorities without a search warrant. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the government has revoked hundreds of student visas following pro-Palestinian protests at universities across the country. The Department of Homeland Security will now screen applicants' social media accounts before issuing them. If anti-Semitic content is found, the applicant will likely be denied a green card or a student visa. Meanwhile, the deadline for DHS to provide more evidence about Mahmoud Khalil's case was 5 o'clock yesterday evening. If that evidence is not sufficient in the judge's eyes, that judge could rule tomorrow to entirely throw out the case and release Khalil from the Louisiana detention facility where he's currently being held. But for now, we're live here outside Columbia. Dan and Tashani, back to you.
So my thoughts on this, right? It's kind of multi-layered. And what I mean by that is when you have a student visa, much like a green card, there's certain things that you can and cannot do, all right? And a lot of people don't know this. They think, oh, you have a green card, you have a student visa, you're allowed to do pretty much all the things that, U.S. citizens can do without being abated. No. I haven't really looked into student visas, but one thing I do know about green cards is that you have certain criteria you have to abide by, and if you don't, guess what? They can kick you out. I'm pretty sure that when you're a permanent green card holder, so a permanent citizen, that's what they call it, as opposed to U.S. citizen, you can't vote because you're just a green card holder. That's it. You have to pay your taxes, and I say that because a lot of people don't pay their taxes. But if you don't pay your taxes in the U.S. and you're a U.S. citizen, I mean, you hope the IRS doesn't get you. They will, because they're the biggest mafia out there. You didn't hear from me, but you know what I'm saying? They could send you back if you don't pay your taxes. They could send you back for a multitude of different reasons when you have a green card. People think, oh, I have a green card, it's fine. No, you have to abide by certain things. You get in too much trouble when you have a green card, guess what? They send you back. I know this because I have family members, not that that's happened to, but when it comes to them having, legal status and when you had that green card, straight and narrow. And I'm pretty sure it's the same thing with student visas. I'll try to look that up to become a little bit more informed, because when it came to this whole thing, I kind of ignored it because my mindset, has always been, that's not my business. The only thing that really bugged me with it was the fact that they were stopping other students from going to school and causing disturbance. That's the only part that really, I guess, had my ears perk up to it. Besides that, not my business. My whole stance when it comes to the whole Palestine and Israel thing, ocean away from me, I'm not really dealing with it. I'm not pro-Palestine, I'm not pro-Israel, I'm not pro-nothing. I'm pro making sure my shit over here is taken care of. That's what I'm pro. And like I said, I find it interesting, not just this president, not just this administration, but how hard in the paint we go for Israel. they're cracking down on this when I've seen other things go on, like on campuses, and heard of other things going on campuses. It's like, no, they're really hammering down on this, like the anti-Semitic, rhetoric that may be passed on. It's like, okay, yeah, I don't keep the same energy for everything else. That's all I'm saying, because at the end of the day, no one deserves to be harassed, and that's what's going on, sure. But if they're doing peaceful protests, which not all the time it was peaceful in the sense of, yeah, no one was getting hurt, but it was impeding other students from going to school and then going to their classes, which was annoying. And obviously what you saw what they were doing, they had those encampments and whatnot. Look, you there for the people with student visas. You're there not to protest, but to get your education and continue living here or bump the hell out. That's what you're here for, not for any of that. In any other country, relatively, if something like that was to happen and you have a student visa and you're over there not a permanent resident or their citizen, guess what? They kick you out. Let's jump to this next video where Secretary Marco Rubio, he pretty much defends the decision to revoke the student visas of over hundreds, as you heard, hundreds of students.
Marco. Well, Mr. President, one of the most important things I believe you'll achieve in your presidency is reordering the world in a proper way. For 31 years, more than 31 years now, multiple administrations have allowed the Chinese to deindustrialize this country, to take away jobs and factories and the pillars of our national strength. And what you're doing now, I think, is a great service to our country, but ultimately to the world. And I want to congratulate you and your team that's working on that, because it has extraordinary geopolitical implications, as you see, from all these other countries that are now coming here and wanting to join something that actually it's crazy to allow these. I mean, basically, we lived in a world where Chinese companies can do whatever they want in America, but our companies cannot do anything over there unless they allow it, and even then they steal our stuff and reverse engineer it. So just reordering all of that has dramatic implications on peace and security of the world, so we thank you. An important meeting, thanks to you, is going to happen on Saturday for the first time in a long time. There'll be direct talks between Ambassador Woodcoff and a top-level leader in Iran. We hope that'll lead to peace. You've been very clear what Iran is never going to have is a nuclear weapon, and I think that's what led to this meeting, and we'll wait for him to come back from it, and we're hopeful about that. I would also say that we are receiving, and I think the Department of Homeland Security can confirm this, historic cooperation from countries all over the world. Number one, in taking back their citizens. Every country in the world has to take back people that are illegally in another country. And we have countries that refuse to do it or will kind of ignore our calls. All of them are doing it. The ones that are not are paying a price. And we've also found cooperation in other countries that are willing to take some of these people, some very dangerous criminals. I know the President of El Salvador will be here next week, has really been a good friend of the United States in that regard. These are some of the worst people you'll ever encounter, and Pam knows this, and Christy knows this from the work they're doing. And one last point I want to make, Mr. President, and again, it's under your leadership, it's actually under your executive order. If you come to this country as a student, we expect you to go to class and study and get a degree. If you come here to vandalize a library, take over a campus, and do all kinds of crazy things, we're going to get rid of these people, and we're going to continue to do it. So when we identify lunatics like these, we take away their student visa. No one's entitled to a student visa. The press covers student visas like there's some sort of birthright. No, a student visa is like me inviting you into my home. If you come into my home and put all kinds of crap on my couch, I'm going to kick you out of my house. And so, that's what we're doing with our country, thanks to the President. And last but not least, very important development this week, but both Pam and I are very excited. The finest higher education institution in the United States, University of Florida, is also now the national champions in basketball, and we hope you'll host them here soon, Mr. President. Go Gators.
They're coming. Good for the SEC. They're coming, guys. Well, thank you very much. You really.
So as you heard it right there, he pretty much hit on a few different points, and some of the things I want to talk about is, yes, when it comes to China, yes, these are things that I've been hearing for years, and when you do a little bit of research, and I've talked to people that have either been to China or have done dealings with China, not many, but still enough. You can't go into China and do business all willy-nilly. You have to abide by certain things. And then after you abide by some of the rules and regulations, which is fair, they steal your stuff. This is something I've been hearing for years now, not just now, for years now. And I think we're just trying to level the playing field, make it a little bit more fair. What else did he hit on? Look, at the end of the day, when it comes to these student visas, what he said is exactly right. You're here to study, and then that's it. That's it. You want to protest? All right, get your education, protest back at home, or worry about going through the whole process of legalization, green card, and then becoming a U.S. citizen, and then you can handle that. But besides that, no, you came here to get education, and you may not like what he said, you may not agree with it, because don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they don't have the right to voice or say how they feel, but there are consequences that come with that. That's really it. I'm not trying to suppress the voices of anybody when it comes to them speaking out what they think was going on over in Palestine and Gaza. No, I know that shit's wrong. I know it's wrong. And I'll openly speak out and say, hey, look, this, you know, simpatico relationship that we have with Israel, I don't fully understand it yet. I've heard some people like tell me, you know, exactly what they believe it is. And even still, I'm kind of like misty on it because it's like, okay, I just don't get it. I don't understand the whole fascination with it, you know, because as you can all see, we're hammering down on anti-Semitism, which is fair, but we've never hammered down on anything that relates to hating on a certain group of people to this extent like this. Not like this. Until they say, or until we see that they're taking people away that are actual citizens, like U.S. citizens, and then locking them up just for protesting, I ain't got nothing else to say. I try to keep up with this because I've been paying attention to it, but I didn't really care enough about it to do a video about it because it just, look, you're here to study, that's it. No need to protest. It doesn't concern you. Truthfully, you're here to get an education, and I can't stress that enough. And if you disagree with me, cool, that's fine. Put it down in the comments, we can talk about it. Like always, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment down below, tell me your thoughts. Tell me, I mean, do you feel like they're right? I mean, obviously I know some of you don't feel like this right, but explain to me why. Explain to me why you think that someone should be able to come to our country on a student visa and be able to just do whatever they want in the terms of protesting. You know, like, explain that to me, and then maybe we can have a dialogue about it. And as always, subscribe. Peace.